The morning my marriage ended started with the smell of coffee and the sound of silence, which is funny when you think about it, because you would expect something louder, shouting, breaking glass, sirens. But no, it was just quiet, the kind of quiet that wraps itself around your throat and squeezes. Outside our penthouse windows, New Haven was washed in a pale winter light, all glass and steel, and people going somewhere. Inside, it was just me, bare feet on cold marble, watching the dark stream drip into 2 cups. I would set out by habit, even though I knew, deep down, one of them would stay untouched. Have you ever continued a ritual long after you stopped believing in the person it was meant for? I loved Ethan Stone for 7 years, 4.5 as the girl on the sidelines, 3 as his wife, and somewhere in between I forgot where I ended and he began. I had once been a rising interior designer with a portfolio like a promise. Then I became the woman who knew his coffee order, his meeting schedule, the exact way his shoulders tightened when a deal went sideways, but somehow not the contents of his heart. We were 3 years married that day. I remembered. He pretended not to. That was our dynamic in a sentence. I was wearing one of the soft sweaters he used to say, made me look comfortable. As if that were a compliment instead of a warning. Comfortable meant convenient. Convenient meant replaceable. I did not know that yet. I know it now. I heard his key in the door at exactly 7:30, right on schedule, like he was clocking in. I waited for the familiar sound of his briefcase hitting the console table, the rustle of his coat. What I did not expect was the second set of footsteps, lighter, hesitant, followed by a voice I had not heard in years but recognized instantly, because he would spoken her name so many times before he ever said I do to me. "This is—" "Wow," she said behind him, breathy, admiring. "You really live like this, Ethan, Tara Ashford." His first love. His white moonlight, as his grandmother liked to say, in an old-fashioned, romantic tone that made me feel like a stand-in even when I was standing right there. The woman who saved his life in a car crash at 20 and then disappeared overseas to find herself, leaving behind a devotion he carried like scar tissue. Have you ever married someone who was still half in love with a ghost? I stood behind the kitchen island, fingers tightening around the coffee mugs. Ethan turned the corner first, in his charcoal suit, tie immaculate, face composed. Tara followed, all soft waves of chestnut hair, big brown eyes that managed to look both innocent and calculating at the same time. She wore white. Of course, she wore white. "Vivian," Ethan said, like my name was an interruption. "We need to talk." People only say that when they already know exactly how the conversation ends. Do not. I looked from him to her, taking in the way she hovered just behind his shoulder, like a memory that had grown legs and walked into my kitchen. I smiled, because sometimes smiling is the only weapon you have left. "Interesting choice of guest for our anniversary breakfast," I said. Tara flushed, but not with shame. More like excitement. I did not realize it is fine. I cut in. It is not like we were going to celebrate. Ethan ignored that. He set his leather portfolio on the counter and took out a crisp white envelope. He did not look nervous. He did not look guilty. He looked efficient. "Vivian," he said again, in the tone he used in board meetings. "I have had some papers drawn up. This is overdue. Have you ever seen your worst fear arrive in the exact packaging you imagined it would and still been shocked?" I knew what it was before he slid it across the marble. Divorce papers. My name, printed in black ink. Vivian Heartstone. It looked wrong, suddenly, like it belonged to someone who'd made worse deals than I had. "We are doing this in front of her?" I asked quietly. "She is part of the conversation," he replied. "No," I said. "She is the reason for it." Tara flinched. "That is not fair," she whispered. "I did not ask. You did not have to ask," I said, not taking my eyes off Ethan. "You just had to show up," and he carried in the rest. He took a breath, like my words were a minor inconvenience. Vivian, this marriage was never supposed to be permanent. You know that. My grandmother insisted on it after the accident. She wanted stability. Heirs. The right image for the company. I gave her what she wanted. I gave you security. Now things have changed. It does not make sense to continue a relationship built on obligation. Obligation, I repeated, the word cracking in half on my tongue. Is that what you call it? When I gave up my entire career. So you could have a wife waiting in a clean house with your favorite dinner on the table. Is that what you call the nights? I stayed up until midnight working on proposals with you, unpaid, because you said I was the only one who got your vision. Was that obligation for you too, Tara? I added sweetly, turning to her. Or did that sound more like devotion from where you are standing? She swallowed, guilt flickering across her face like a cloud over the sun. I never asked him to leave you, she said softly. I flew back to the States for my brother, for Ian, you know that. And he just happened to pick you up at the airport the week before our anniversary. I finished. What a coincidence. I looked at Ethan. Did you feel anything at all when you picked that date? Or do calendar reminders not come with conscience prompts? His jaw tightened, but his voice stayed maddeningly even. This is not about dates, Vivian. I had to wait until the timing was right. The board, the family, your grandmother, I interrupted. Say, her... Do not hide behind family. You married me because Margaret Stone wanted a properly branded wife at your side. You filed for divorce because your white moonlight reappeared, and suddenly, obligation did not feel romantic enough to fake anymore. Have you ever realized in one brutal moment that you were never the leading woman in your own marriage? Just the understudy filling space until the original cast member decided to return. Ethan slid the papers closer to me. I am not here to argue, he said. I have made arrangements. You will be more than taken care of. The apartment is in my name, but you will have enough to live comfortably. You won't have to work a day in your life if you do not want to. Security. Taken care of. Like a pet, he would grown tired of feeding himself. You really do not get it, do you? I asked. You think I am upset because you are kicking me out of the penthouse and cutting off the Amex. That is not what you are doing, I said, voice suddenly quiet, is admitting you never chose me. Not once. You married me to placate a woman who treats human beings like chess pieces, and you are divorcing me because your fantasy finally showed up in a new dress. I picked up the pen he would placed beside the papers, the one with his initials engraved on it, and I looked at Tara, who could not quite meet my eyes. You know what is funny, I said. I used to be jealous of you. Of the way he said your name, of the way his grandmother looked at your photos when she thought I was not watching, of the story they built around you, a tragic heroine who saved his life. I thought if I tried hard enough, I could earn the same kind of devotion. I uncapped the pen. Turns out, some shrines never make room for new offerings. And then I signed, not as Vivian Heartstone, just Vivian Hart. I dropped the pen on the counter, the clink louder than their breathing. So that is it? Tara asked, almost incredulous. You are just letting him go. I am letting myself go, I corrected. He was never really mine. I pushed the papers back toward Ethan. Congratulations, I said. You finally got the clean break you wanted. Consider this my resignation from the position of unpaid housekeeper, emotional punching bag, and on-call hostess. Effective. Immediately. Have you ever felt your heart breaking and your spine straightening at the exact same time? It is disorienting. It is also the clearest you will ever be. Ethan opened his mouth, then closed it. For the first time, I saw something like discomfort in his eyes. Not love, not remorse. Just the faint recognition that I was no longer playing the role he would written for me. Vivian, No, I said. You do not get to say my name like that anymore. You do not get access to it for free. You gave me money instead of love. I will take the money and buy back my self-respect. I stepped around them toward the door. Pack your things, he asked weakly. Take your time. There is no rush. I travel light, I said. You should know that by now. I only ever brought myself into this marriage. You never let me unpack. I did not slam the door. I closed it gently. It felt more final that way. The elevator ride down from the 32nd floor felt like shedding skin. I watched my reflection in the mirrored walls, a woman in a soft sweater, hair hastily pulled back, face pale but eyes sharp. A woman who had just handed back a name and realized it had not fit for a long time. Have you ever looked at yourself after losing everything and thought, maybe, just maybe, I never actually had anything real to lose? Outside, winter bit at my cheeks. I did not have a plan beyond getting away from the building where my life had been paused for 3 years. I checked into a hotel downtown, gave the receptionist my card, and when she asked for a billing address, I hesitated for half a second before saying, just use the one on file. The one tied to Ethan. The one he had always insisted on controlling. Fine. One last use, I thought. A tiny, petty part of me enjoyed that more than I should have. I dropped my suitcase in the hotel room, stood in the middle of the unfamiliar space, and listened to the silence. It did not feel suffocating this time. It felt expansive. Empty, yes, but empty like a blank canvas. Not like a void. I lay down on the bed, fully clothed, and stared at the ceiling, willing myself not to cry. I lasted 20 minutes before my throat burned, and the tears came anyway, hot and furious. Not for him. For me. For the version of myself who'd believed that being someone's wife was the pinnacle of her story. Have you ever cried not because someone left, but because you finally did, after the storm passed? All that was left was a strange, simmering clarity. I sat up, wiped my face, and opened my purse. Ethan's black Amex sat in the wallet slot like a loaded gun. He would given it to me on our honeymoon with a casual, buy whatever you like, as if that could replace saying, I love you. I would used it mostly for groceries and tasteful decor, never letting myself indulge in anything that felt too much. Today felt like the right day to misbehave. I changed into jeans and boots, tied my hair up, put on a red lipstick I would bought once and never worn because Ethan said it was too loud, and stepped back out into the city. Fifth Avenue equivalents exist in every town worth its glass. New Haven was no exception. I walked into the first boutique I saw, the bell above the door chiming a little too cheerfully. The sales associate looked up with the typical practiced smile, then did a double take. Mrs. Stone, she said, then flushed. I mean, it is fine. I cut in. I am just browsing. Of course, she said, eyes flicking to my left hand, which felt suddenly naked. If you need anything, I will, I said. A dressing room. And maybe a new life. I pulled things off racks almost at random at first. Structured jackets, silk blouses, pants that actually fit my waist instead of accommodating someone else's idea of what a wife should wear. Then I got intentional. I chose a sharp black blazer with clean lines that made my shoulders look like they could handle more than grocery bags. A deep emerald blouse that brought warmth to my skin. Jeans that hugged my body like it belonged to me. Have you ever stood in a dressing room under terrible fluorescent lighting and still thought, I look like a woman who survived, not a woman who was abandoned? When I walked out and handed the pile to the associate, she blinked. All of these, yes, I said, and throw in that pair of heels in the window, the black ones with the ridiculous stilettos. She grinned. Those are lethal. Perfect? I slid Ethan's card across the counter. The machine beeped its approval. For the first time, the sound felt like mine. I hit 2 more stores after that, one for a classic trench coat, another for lingerie no one had to see but me. Not because I needed any of it to be whole, because I wanted physical reminders that I existed outside the roles he would scripted. Back at the hotel, my room looked like the aftermath of a tornado in a high-end wardrobe. I hung the new clothes carefully, more reverent with them than I would been with my wedding dress. That dress was somewhere in the back of his closet, wrapped in plastic like a relic. It could stay there. I showered, changed into the emerald blouse and black blazer, and finally opened my laptop. The background was still an old rendering from a project I would done in my 20s, lines crisp, light realistic, my name in the corner design, V. Heart. Before stone swallowed it. I stared at the screen for a long time, then clicked open a folder labeled Portfolio. There it was. My real life. Hotel lobbies bathed in soft light. Restaurant interiors that felt like conversations. Residential spaces that whispered home without any cliches. All the things I would stopped adding to when I traded my drafting table for a high-end stove and a laundry schedule. My fingers hovered over the trackpad. Then I opened my email. I drafted 3 messages. The first to a boutique firm in Boston I would admired for years. The second to a New York studio that specialized in experiential interiors, whatever that meant now. The third to an address I knew by heart but never thought I would use this way. Careers at Stone Global Designs. .com. Have you ever done something you knew would blow up your life in a whole new way and press send? Anyway, dear hiring manager, I typed, because I refused to believe he read those himself. Please find attached my CV and portfolio for consideration for any senior-level design roles. Matching my profile. Best, Vivian Hart. No mention of Stone. No, Mrs. No context. Just work. I attached my portfolio, took a deep breath, and clicked send on all 3 emails in quick succession, like ripping off 3 different bandages. Then I closed the laptop, ordered room service steak, red wine, dessert, the works, because for once I did not feel like apologizing to anyone for taking up space, and turned on some terrible reality show for background noise. The next morning, my phone buzzed at 6:42 a.m. I squinted at the screen, expecting a bank alert or a message from my mother asking why she would seen Ethan at some function alone. Instead, I saw Stone Global Designs interview invitation. For a second, I thought I was hallucinating. I opened the email. Dear MS. Art, thank you for your application for the Senior Creative Director position. We were impressed by your portfolio and would like to invite you for an interview at our New Haven headquarters. Please confirm your availability. My first instinct was to laugh. Loudly. My soon-to-be ex-husband's company wanted to interview me. Not as his +1. Not as his wife. As a creative professional. As talent. As someone they were impressed by. Have you ever felt the universe hand you the sharpest possible knife and ask, well, are you going to pick it up or not? Part of me wanted to delete the email and move on with my life in some other city, some other industry, some other universe where Ethan Stone was just a name on a stock ticker. But another part, the part that had signed divorce papers without crying and walked into boutiques like she owned them, wanted to walk into his world on her own 2 feet and see how he handled it when I was not staying small to keep him comfortable. I typed, I am available. Thank you for the opportunity. Ninus Vivian Hart. I hit send before I could talk myself out of it. 2 days later, I stood in front of Stone Global Designs, lobby in my new black blazer and heels, watching employees stream in through the revolving doors. My heart thumped an uneven rhythm against my ribs, but my face was composed. I walked in, head high. The receptionist looked up, startled recognition flickering across her features. Mass. Hart, she said. Not Mrs. Welcome. They are expecting you on the top floor. The elevator ride felt like a time machine. Same soft music, Same polished chrome, same ascent to the 32nd floor where my marriage had just died days ago. Different woman inside. When the doors opened, I saw Claudia, Ethan's assistant, waiting by his office with a tablet in hand. "Vivian," she said, offering a tight, professional smile. "Right this way." "I thought I was meeting with HR," I said. "You are," she replied. "And with Mr. Stone." Of course. We stepped into his office. He was standing by the window, back to the door, looking out over the city he thought he controlled. "Come in," he said without turning. "Have a seat." "I would rather stand," I replied. He turned then, and for the first time since I would sign those papers, our eyes met on equal ground. Surprise flickered there, quickly masked. "Vivian," he said, and my name in his mouth sounded different this time. Not like possession, like a problem he could not quantify. "I see HR moved fast," I said. "Efficient, as always. They did not realize who you were when they forwarded your application," he said. "I did. And yet I am still here," I said, "which means you did not immediately hit delete." "Progress." He studied me for a moment, taking in the blazer, the heels, the lack of a ring. "Your portfolio is strong," he said. "Stronger than most of the candidates we have seen." "That does not sound like an insult," I said. "Careful, I might start thinking you respect me." "This is a senior role," he continued, ignoring that. "High-stakes clients, heavy workload, constant pressure. You have been out of the industry. It won't be easy to step back in at this level." "I have been running your life for 3 years," I said. "I think I can handle a few clients." Have you ever stood in front of someone who once set the limits of your world and realized those limits were mostly in your own head? "Why here?" he asked. "You could go anywhere else and avoid complications." "Because this is where I fell asleep," I said, "and this is where I want to wake up." He frowned. "This is not about us?" "It is not about you at all," I said. "You just happen to be in the building where my talent fits. Uncomfortable is not it," he exhaled slowly. "The board will have concerns. HR too. People will talk. People always talk," I said. "At least this time they will be talking about my work." Silence stretched between us, thick with old ghosts and new truths. Finally, he said, "If I hire you, you will report to Lena, not to me, and I won't be able to protect you from office politics." "You never protected me from family politics," I said. "Why start now?" He almost smiled. "Almost? You think you can handle it?" "I know I can," I replied. "The real question is, can you handle seeing me here every day and knowing you let me go before you ever really met me?" The words hung there, sharp and undeniable. Have you ever thrown the truth at someone like a grenade and watched them decide whether to catch it or let it explode? Ethan looked away first. "You start Monday," he said. "Senior Creative Director. Officially, this is because your work is unmistakably qualified." "Unofficially?" I asked. "We do not do unofficial," he said, but his eyes betrayed him. I turned to leave, my heart pounding, my mind racing. As my hand touched the door, he spoke again. "Vivian." I paused. "Yes, this is not a game," he said. "Do not use this job to get back at me." I did not turn around. "You are not the center of everything anymore, Ethan," I said. "This is not about getting back at you. This is about getting myself back." I stepped out into the hallway, heels clicking, air cooler somehow, lighter. As the elevator doors closed in front of me, I caught my reflection one more time. Same face, same eyes, completely different woman. And somewhere inside, under the fear and the fury and the faint, stubborn ache, a new question whispered, If the place where you lost yourself is also where you can become undeniable, would you walk back in? I just had. The Monday I started at Stone Global Designs felt like walking into a perfectly polished battlefield. Every inch of the glass lobby gleamed spotless, calculated and cold, like the kind of beauty that exists only to remind you you are not part of it. I could see my reflection in the marble floor, hair smooth, heels steady, mouth set in that thin, almost smile people mistake for confidence. Have you ever stepped back into the place that broke you just to prove to yourself it no longer could? That was me, Vivian Hart, former wife turned senior creative director, headline of my own quiet scandal. The receptionist's welcome back carried an undertone that said, "We have all been talking about you." The elevator ride was a mirror maze of whispers. 2 interns in pastel suits avoided my eyes, but did not lower their voices. "That is her, right? The ex, the one who used to be Mrs. Doan." I smiled politely, as if I could not hear. The elevator chimed. 32nd floor, same as before. My new office was smaller than the one I would once shared with him, but it had walls of glass, sunlight sharp as judgment pouring through them. The plaque on the door read Vivian Hart, Senior Creative Director. No, Mrs. Anything. The absence of that second word felt like oxygen. I ran my fingers along the nameplate until the tremor in my hand faded. By 10, HR had finished their orientation speech about respectful workplace culture. By noon, I was already drowning in project files. It felt good. Tangible. Clean. Lena Cho, my supervisor, a woman whose eyeliner could cut through marble, walked in, arms full of folders. "Welcome aboard," she said, voice warm but measured. "Officially, you report to me. Unofficially, everyone's waiting to see if you and the boss will kill each other or spontaneously remarry." "I will disappoint them on both counts," I said. Lena's mouth quirked. "Good. I like survivors." The first week was a study in contradictions. Half the staff looked at me with pity, half with fascination. Ethan avoided me. Mostly. Until the third morning, when his name appeared in my inbox. Meeting, 3 p.m. Boardroom 6. The subject line had no greeting, no context. His signature kind of control. At 3 p.m. sharp, I walked into Boardroom 6. He was already there, sleeves rolled, tie loosened just enough to look unbothered. He did not say hello. "You have been assigned the Blackwood account," he said, pushing a folder across the table. "High-profile client, unstable temperament. Do not let him corner you." "Corner me," I echoed. "Or you." His jaw flexed. "This is business, Vivian. That is what you called marriage, too." He looked at me like a man used to winning arguments. "You are here because you are good at what you do?" he said evenly. "Try not to make it about us." I smiled, sharp as glass. "You made sure there was an us in the job description." That night, I stayed late reviewing the project. The office emptied out until only the hum of air vents and city noise remained. At 9:47 p.m., the elevator dinged. He appeared in the doorway, holding 2 coffees. "Still working?" he asked. "Still breathing?" I replied. "That is progress." He set the cup on my desk. "It is decaf. You never sleep. When you drink caffeine after 8, you still remember that. I remember a lot of things." "Selective memory." I said, "You have always been good at that." He lingered. I did not ask him to stay. We worked in silence until he said, "Blackwood's dangerous." "So am I," I said, not looking up. "Have you ever realized that anger is just grief wearing armor? Because that is what I was then, a woman in battle gear, pretending she would already won." Garrett Blackwood arrived 3 days later. He was the kind of man who filled a room the wrong way. Expensive cologne, too much laughter, eyes that calculated before they appreciated. He called me Viv before we would even shake hands. Your husband tells me you are the best in the business. Ex-husband, I corrected smoothly. And I prefer proving that myself. He grinned, shark-like. I like a woman who fights back. I smiled tightly. Then you will love my invoices. His project was a resort concept, a blend of sin and serenity. He would said, what he really wanted was validation. Men like that always do. Our meetings stretched late, his compliments growing sloppier. One evening, after reviewing plans, he brushed my shoulder and said, you have got vision and legs that make the vision walk. My legs are not in the proposal, I said coldly. You are lucky. My brain is. Later that night, a text flashed on my phone, dinner tomorrow. Business, Suite 1203. I did not answer. I did not need to. The next morning, Ethan stormed into my office. You are not going, he said, eyes hard. Since when do you dictate my calendar? Since Blackwood became a liability? He is a client. He is a predator. And you are my what, savior? I shot back. No, he said, voice low. The only person I can't stop thinking about protecting. The silence between us pulsed. I hated that my heartbeat recognized his before my pride did. Stay out of it, Ethan. I can't. You do not get to care now. I never stopped. Then you should have started sooner. That night, I went to the meeting anyway, but not alone. I brought Mia, my assistant, under the pretense of shadowing. Blackwood opened the suite door shirt, unbuttoned, grin already waiting. Did not realize you brought an audience. You did not specify a dress code, I said, stepping inside. The meeting lasted 10 minutes before he touched my arm. I stepped back. We are done. You will regret this, he said. You will regret thinking I would not document everything, I said, holding up my phone's recording app. Before he could respond, the door opened again. Ethan stood there, tie gone, eyes dark. Mess. Heart, he said evenly. Board needs you. Now. He turned to Blackwood. Garrett? Always a pleasure. You are making a mistake, Stone, Blackwood snarled. I already did, Ethan said. 3 years ago, we left without speaking. In the elevator, the tension buzzed. You should not have followed me, I said. You should not have gone. You do not own my choices anymore. I am aware, he said. Does not mean I stopped giving a damn. I laughed, bitter. You care now, because someone else saw me. He did not deny it. The next morning, every screen in the office flashed a breaking headline: Stone Global terminates partnership with Blackwood International amid harassment allegations. My name was not mentioned. But everyone knew. Whispers followed me like perfume again. He did it for her, someone murmured. Would not you, another said. By noon, the board summoned him. By 2, they summoned me. The meeting room was full of men in suits who smelled of moral panic. One cleared his throat. Mass, we would appreciate if you refrained from further contact with Mr. Blackwood. The optics? You mean the optics of your CEO defending an employee from sexual harassment? I said. Yes. Terrible look. Must be exhausting being decent. Silence. Ethan's gaze met mine from across the table, equal parts, admiration and warning. When I walked out, Lena whispered, You just became a liability or a legend. Maybe both, I said. Have you ever realized you were not the scandal, you were the story? That afternoon, my inbox flooded with client inquiries. Women in other firms, other industries, writing, thank you for not staying quiet. That night, Ethan showed up outside my apartment. "You are trending," he said dryly. "You sound jealous," I said. "Of the attention or the courage? Both?" "You can have neither," I replied. But his next words disarmed me. "You reminded me who you were," he said, "and it is terrifying." "Good," I said. "Maybe now you will stop underestimating me." For a while, things steadied. Work came easier. Carter appeared often, meetings, lunches, late-night brainstorming. He was clever, dangerously charming, and utterly unbothered by the chaos surrounding me. "So Miss Hart," he teased one afternoon, "is this your redemption arc or your revenge tour? Can't it be both?" I said. "Just making sure I buy tickets early." He leaned closer, voice low. "You know, Stone's watching every move you make. He should—" I learned from him. "Careful," Carter murmured. "People like him do not lose gracefully. Neither do I." The following week, I received a call from HR, mandatory company retreat, Palm Coast, Florida. Attendance required by senior leadership. My stomach sank. Margaret Stone's name was on the memo. Ethan's grandmother, the original architect of this farce of a marriage, the woman who believed love could be managed like stocks bought, sold, and written off. When Ethan appeared at my door, I did not bother pretending surprise. "You knew she would do this," I said. "She thinks this retreat will help repair optics," he said, "and keep shareholders calm. So she is using us as press decor again." "It is a weekend," he said quietly. "We will survive it. We did not survive marriage. Maybe this time we will fake it better." Have you ever felt like life keeps giving you the same exam until you learn the right answer? I looked at him for a long moment, then nodded. "Fine. But this time, Ethan, I am not going as your wife. I am going as the woman you underestimated." He smiled faintly. "You were never anything less." I picked up my bag, the emerald blouse, the sharp heels, and my favorite armor indifference. "Pack your own image this time," I said. "I am done carrying it." The flight to Palm Coast left Friday morning. The sky outside was unnervingly clear. I watched the clouds slide beneath the wing, thinking how ironic it was that freedom and falling start from the same altitude. He sat beside me, silent, reading emails. I sipped champagne, ignoring him. When we landed, the humid air felt like a warning. The resort Margaret had chosen glittered against the sea like a stage set. And somewhere inside, the next act of our unfinished war waited, perfectly lit, ready to begin. Have you ever felt the air shift right before a storm? Not the kind that ruins cities, but the kind that rearranges souls. That is how it felt stepping off that plane. Palm Coast smelled like money, pretending to be saltwater and citrus. The Stone Global Retreat Resort was one of ours, a pet project of Ethan's from years ago. So stepping into the lobby felt like walking into a version of my own brain designed by someone else. High ceilings, cascading pendant lights, a glass wall framing the ocean like a painting. "We did this one before we got married," he said quietly, as we walked across the marble, suit jacket thrown over his arm, tie already loose from the humidity. "I remember," I replied. "I was there for the sketches, remember? Or did I blend into the furniture the way your grandmother prefers? Have you ever stood in a place you helped build and watched someone else take credit for the foundation? That was my entire marriage in a lobby." At the reception desk, the front desk manager smiled the way only someone who has been prepped on VIP arrivals can. "Welcome to Palm Crown Resort, Mr. and Mrs. Stone. We have prepared your usual suite." Ethan opened his mouth. I beat him to it. "It is MS Hart," I corrected, smiling. "But the suite is fine." I watched the flicker of discomfort cross his face before he smoothed it away. He hated being corrected in public. Good. Maybe growth feels like paper cuts on a man who has never been told no. The bellhop led us up to the 20th floor, to a corner suite with a wraparound balcony and obscene view sun, spilling across the water in a way that made the world look forgivable, even when it was not. Inside, one king bed, a sofa that tried and failed to look comfortable, a bottle of champagne on ice, and a handwritten note on the table. I recognized the looping script before I even picked it up. You two have been through a rough patch. This weekend is an opportunity. No arguments. No separate rooms. Love, Margaret. Of course, I said, waving the card. She booked us the honeymoon package. How efficient. Ethan pinched the bridge of his nose. I told her we are divorced. Did you say it with enough conviction? She pretended not to hear. She has had a lot of practice. Not hearing things, I said. He exhaled. I will get another room. You can sleep on the couch, I said. I am not giving her the satisfaction of seeing us separated. On the hotel registry, she won that round once. I am not letting her frame the narrative again. He looked at me like he had not expected war from my side. You sure? I have slept next to worse, I said. Like denial. The first event on the schedule was leadership, welcome reception, cocktails, and vision. That translated to expensive booze and stemware, small talk about growth, people pretending they liked each other more than they liked their bonuses. I wore a black slip dress under a white blazer, and heels sharp enough to kill a small animal. Let them talk. If I was going to be a story, I would at least be a well-dressed one. Margaret spotted us across the terrace within 5 seconds. She moved through the crowd like an ocean liner, parting smaller boats in her path. Diamond earrings, silk suit the color of champagne, hair in a perfect chignon. Darlings, she said, kissing Ethan's cheek, then mine. You look radiant, Vivian. Divorce seems to agree with you. Freedom looks good on everyone, I said. Her eyes flickered. She recovered. We are here to align, not to be dramatic, she said. The press has had enough of that, do not you think? I think they are bored, actually, I replied. Maybe we should give them a redemption arc. Those test well. Her smile tightened. I always liked your sense of humor. You cover wounds with it. Beautifully. You would know, I said sweetly. You did most of the cutting. Ethan made a small warning sound. Margaret ignored him. You two will attend all events together, she said. Panels, dinners, workshops. The board needs to see unity. Investors crave stability. And the staff. She waved a manicured hand at the crowd. They need a story that ends well. We are not a fable, I said. We are a cautionary tale. All the more reason to finish it properly, she said, then glided away to flatter a group of directors. Have you ever had someone treat your entire emotional life like a PR arc they are producing? I wanted to grab a drink, pour it over the retreat agenda, and light it on fire. Instead, I smiled for photos. One of the two of you looking at each other, the photographer said, We obliged. I turned my head, met Ethan's eyes. For a second, the room fell away, just him, just me, suspended in the strange gravity of shared history and unshared truths. The flash broke it. Later, I would see the photo online. Stone and heart, stronger together. People always write the question mark when they want the answer to be yes. I slipped away to the balcony as soon as I could, eyes on the ocean. Ears on the distant waves instead of the nearer gossip. The sea was darker now, the sky streaked with orange and pink like a painting you would accuse of trying too hard if it were not real. You are hiding, a voice behind me said. Not his... lighter. Amused. I turned to see Carter leaning against the railing, shirt sleeves rolled, tie gone, drink in hand. You are not leadership, I said. "What are you doing here, investor?" he replied, "which is like leadership, but with better exits." He took a sip, studied me. "So this is the grand performance. Stone and heart, happily complicated." "We are just here for the open bar," I said. "And the trust fall exercises tomorrow," he added. "You too will be great at those." "We already proved gravity works," I said. "No need to test it again." He stepped closer, not enough to be improper, just enough to be noticed. "You look good," he said. "Different?" "Divorce glow," I said. "You should try it." "I will divorce my money one day," he said. "For now, we are still codependent." He tilted his glass toward Ethan, who was talking to a group of executives inside, one eye always drifting toward the balcony. "He is watching you like a man looking through a locked window," Carter murmured. "What do you see?" I asked. "A woman standing outside the house he built," Carter said, "and the moment he realizes he can't invite her back in." Have you ever had someone describe your life more accurately in 10 seconds than your partner did in 10 years? It stung. But it also clarified. "If you keep staring," I said lightly, "he is going to come out here and piss on the territory." Carter smirked. "I thought you were not his territory anymore." "I am not," I said. "But he has not updated his map." Ethan joined us 2 minutes later, drink in hand, smile practiced. "Carter," he said, "did not realize you had made it down." "Would not miss the show," Carter replied. Ethan's gaze shifted to me. "You disappeared." I floated. I said, "There is a difference." He looked between us, tension almost visible in the humid air. "They are starting the speech," he said. "Margaret will want you front and center." "She can want many things," I said. "But fine, let us go be decorative." During Margaret's opening remarks about resilience, family legacy, and navigating turbulent markets with grace, I stood next to Ethan on the small stage, smiling like my jaw was not clenched. Her words blurred in my head. "When personal storms threaten professional stability, we must choose unity. Sometimes we must put aside pride for the greater good." She did not look at me once while saying it. She did not have to. Every person in that room knew who the storm was. Afterward, as people milled around, a younger executive I vaguely recognized, Aiden, head of some digital initiative, approached me. "I have followed your work for years," he said, eyes bright. "Your pre-marriage portfolio, I mean, the Heartline lobby redesign, genius." It took me a second to place him. Then it clicked. He had been a nervous intern at one of my first projects, years ago. "You remember that?" I asked. "You told me not to apologize for taking up space in a room full of men," he said. I never forgot. Ethan, hovering nearby, heard it. I could feel his attention like static. "Are you back for good?" Aiden asked. "Depends how long the building stays standing," I said. "Well," he smiled, "if you ever get tired of this place, I am building my own firm in Chicago. We would kill to have you." Ethan's jaw tightened. "She is not going anywhere," he said. "Yet," I added, meeting his eyes. Have you ever watched jealousy flash across someone's face and realized it does not feel flattering anymore? Just late. Later that night, back in our shared suite, the distance between us felt bigger than the king-size bed. I brushed my teeth on one side of the bathroom. He shaved on the other. The domesticity felt like a ghost mocking us. "You and Carter seem close," he said, not looking at me. "He is a client," I said. "He is a shark." "You like sharks." "I like deals," he said. "People like him do not care who they cut." "People like you do not either," I shot back. "You just called it sacrifice." He wiped his face with a towel, met my gaze in the mirror. "Do you really think I felt nothing? Signing those papers? I think you felt relief," I said, relief that you could finally chase your ghost without guilt. She was not. He stopped himself. This is not about Tara. Everything was about Tara, I said. You married me to clean up the optics of losing her. Now she is back in your orbit, and you are scrambling to rewrite your narrative. How's that going? His eyes hardened. You really believe I never cared? I believe you cared more about not disappointing Margaret than about losing me, I said. And I believe you loved the idea of being noble more than the reality of being present. The silence after that was heavy. He walked out of the bathroom, tossed a pillow and a blanket onto the couch, and lay down without another word. I turned off the lights and climbed into bed alone, the way I had for years, even when we shared a roof. Sleep felt like an acquaintance I would lost contact with. Eventually, exhaustion invited itself in. Morning came with forced sunshine. The itinerary shoved under our door said team-building activities, 9 a.m. Beachfront. I wanted to burn it. Instead, I put on linen pants, a loose white shirt, and sunglasses to hide the circles under my eyes. The activities turned out to be a series of humiliations disguised as growth exercises. First, trust falls. Then, blindfolded obstacle courses where one partner directed the other with shouted instructions. Of course, they paired me with Ethan. You two go last, the facilitator beamed, as if saving the best for the finale. You have weathered storms together. Have you ever wanted to laugh and scream at the same time? Trust fall first. I crossed my arms over my chest, back to him. On 3, the facilitator said. 1, 2, 3. I let myself fall. His arms caught me, solid and sure. For a second, I felt the old safety illusory, but seductive rush up my spine. He held me a heartbeat too long before the facilitator clapped. See the man chirp. She trusts you. No, I murmured, stepping away. I trusted gravity. He was just in the way. A few people laughed, assuming I was joking. He knew better. Blindfold next. They tied soft fabric over my eyes, plunging the world into warmth and sound. You will guide her with words only, the facilitator said. No touching. Got it, Ethan said. I stood at the start of the course, sand uneven beneath my feet. Forward, he said. I took a step. Left. 2 steps. There is a chair. Good. Duck. It was unnerving, letting his voice be my map again. But he did not let me stumble. Stop, he said sharply when I came too close to a stack of crates. Back 3 inches. Not more. His instructions were precise, careful. When I reached the end, the cloth came off. We were closer than I realized. For a moment, we just looked at each other. Breath, memory, unfinished sentences crowding the space between us. You did good, he said quietly. You always did, I replied. During lunch, Margaret took the seat opposite us at a long table under white tents. You two look so natural out there, she cooed, like you never missed a step. We did not, I said. We were good at pretending. T-T-S-K-E-D. You young people, always thinking love should feel like fireworks instead of work. You are confusing obedience with effort, I said. Her smile did not reach her eyes. And you are confusing pride with independence. She placed her hand over mine. Her fingers were cool and strong. You can build a career, Vivian. A good one. But no matter how high you climb, you will always be judged on who stands beside you. This is still the world we live in. Then maybe the world should change, I said. It won't, she replied. But you can influence how it sees you. A united front with Ethan is powerful. You separate, you become a cautionary tale. You stay, you become aspirational. You want a brand, I said, not a marriage. You can be both, she said, and sipped her iced tea. Have you ever realized someone never saw you as a person, just a story to be leveraged? It changes the way every compliment they ever gave you feels in retrospect. That night, there was a formal dinner black tie, string quartet, speeches about restructuring and resilience. I wore a dark green gown that made my shoulders look like armor. Ethan offered his arm. I took it because refusing would be a statement I was not ready to make in front of cameras. We moved through the room like a unit. People saw what they were trained to see. A handsome CEO, his composed wife-ish, the image of survival. The wine flowed too easily. I noticed Margaret's gaze flick to our glasses more than once. Later, in the suite, when I set my drink down after a few sips, my head already felt heavier than it should have. The room wobbled faintly. They must have poured that strong, I murmured. Or you did not eat enough, Ethan said. Sit down. Do not tell me what to do. I started, then lost my balance. His hand shot out, catching my elbow. The strength of his grip felt too far from the ground. Okay, he said. Definitely sit. He guided me to the bed, concern knitting his brow. Then his own expression shifted, pupils dilating a fraction. Is it hot in here? He asked. Or... We looked at each other. Margaret would not, I started. Then I remembered her hand on my glass, the way she would smiled when the waiter refilled it. Oh my God, I said. She absolutely would. Would what, fertility cocktail? I said. Or something equally insane. She has been rambling about wanting great-grandchildren since our engagement party. These company retreats are where the magic happens, remember. His face went through several emotions in rapid succession horror. Disbelief, something perilously close to amusement. You think she drugged us to, what, nudge nature along? She once told me a board member's wife got, accidentally, pregnant after a Napa offsite and called it a win-win, I said. She called the baby. Good timing. I tried to stand. The room heaved. Nope, I said, falling back on the mattress. The air felt too warm. My skin prickled. He sat down at the edge of the bed, breathing a little faster than normal. We should call a doctor, he said. Or HR. Or the FBI. We should drink water, I said, grabbing the glass from the nightstand. And we should definitely not panic. You are shaking, he said. You are sweating, I countered. We stared at each other, two adults, allegedly sophisticated, blinking in the realization that his 80-year-old grandmother had possibly dosed us with some kind of low-key aphrodisiac like this. Was a Regency drama. If she thinks this is going to make us reconcile, I said, she is more delusional than I thought. Maybe we should sleep it off, he said, separately. Obviously, I scoffed. I am not about to give her the satisfaction. We constructed a ludicrous barrier out of extra pillows down the center of the bed and lay on either side, both staring at the ceiling like it held the secrets of responsible adulthood. Every nerve in my body felt louder. The distance between us, physically small, felt morally enormous. This is ridiculous, I said. Agreed. Do not cross the barricade. I am not 12, he said. Pause. And in case you are wondering, this would be the worst possible way for us to fix anything. You do not fix a cracked foundation by adding a baby, I said. You fix it by rebuilding or walking away from the house. Which one are you doing? He asked quietly. I swallowed. I have not decided yet. Have you ever been trapped in a room with your past and realized the only door out is the one inside your own chest? Eventually, the haze passed. The world cooled. The pounding in my veins quieted enough that sleep seemed possible. Before I drifted off, he said softly, I never wanted children just to keep a legacy afloat. Good, I murmured, because I never wanted to be a legacy incubator. The next morning, I woke to find the pillow wall half collapsed and his arm flung over the no man's land, just skimming my waist. I slid away gently, rebuilt the barrier, and told myself the 3-inch gap had not meant anything. The final day of the retreat brought strategic vision sessions. Really, it was code for Margaret addressing the inner circle. We gathered in a private conference room overlooking the ocean. She stood at the head of the table, notes neatly stacked. Thank you all for your contributions, she began. The last few months have been challenging. She glanced at me on the word, as if I were a natural disaster she could not write off as an act of God. But we are stones. We endure. We present a united front. She turned her gaze on Ethan and me, and that includes family. About that, I said before Ethan could speak. We should be clear on what we are presenting. The room shifted. Executives tensed. Margaret's eyes sharpened. This is not the time for semantics, she said. It is exactly the time, I replied. You want us to model stability, but we are not together, not in the way you are implying. And I am not interested in being your prop. Your marriage contract is still legally binding, she said coolly. The divorce is not finalized. On paper, I said. In reality, it is over. Have you ever said the thing everyone knows out loud just to hear what it sounds like in the air? It was both liberating and terrifying. Margaret's lips thinned. Do you understand what your stubbornness costs this company? She asked. What it does to the narrative. I finally understand what your narrative has been costing me, I said. My life. Ethan spoke then, voice low but firm. She is right. That stunned her. Excuse me, we have been pretending, he said. For you, for the board, for investors. It stops now. I studied his profile, the way his jaw was set. I had not asked him to say that. It mattered that he did. We will handle this our way, he added. If the company's stability depends on us lying about our relationship, then the company has bigger problems than optics. The room went silent. You could hear the waves through the glass. Margaret looked from him to me like she was recalibrating the pieces on her board. For the first time, I saw not a queen, but an old woman whose power depended on everyone else agreeing she still had it. Very well, she said finally, voice icy. Be honest, then, but do not expect the world to applaud. I do not need applause, I said. I need sleep. When the retreat ended, and the car took us back to the airport, the air between us felt different. Not healed, not whole, but honest. On the plane, I stared out the window at the shrinking coastline. You meant what you said, I murmured, about not pretending anymore. I did, he said. Took you long enough? I know. You are still going to lose things, I said. Investors? Support. Her. Maybe they were never really mine, he replied. Maybe you never were either. He looked at me then. But I would like to get to know the woman you became despite me. Have you ever heard an invitation that arrived years too late and still felt the echo of what it might have meant if you had gotten it sooner? It hurt. It also did not sway me. As New Haven's skyline came back into view, I knew one thing. The Palm Coast retreat had not revived our marriage. It had exposed its corpse under fluorescent lights. Whatever happened next would not be about saving us. It would be about saving myself from ever letting someone else write my story again. What I did not know yet was that the next chapter would involve car brakes, forged signatures, and a woman who did not just want my past. She wanted my life. The thing about thinking a storm is over is that you forget. Storms have aftershocks. The sky clears, the air cools, and you relax just enough for the next hit to land where it really hurts. Coming back from Palm Coast, I thought the worst was behind me. Public pretending, drugged champagne, Margaret's manipulative speeches about unity. I was wrong. The retreat was not the ending. It was just the dress rehearsal for the real disaster. The first crack appeared a week later on a Thursday morning that looked innocent enough. Sunny, cold, the city humming, in that way it does when people are still optimistic about their emails. I was in my office at Stone Global, halfway through a design presentation, when my phone buzzed with a bank alert. Unusual activity detected on your corporate linked accounts. It read, corporate linked, accounts plural. My stomach dropped in a way the rest of my body did not have time to understand yet. I excused myself from the meeting with some lie about a client call and ducked into a quiet hallway, heart pounding as I opened the banking app. There they were transfers, 5 of them, each for an obscene amount of money, all authorized under a name that used to be mine in a previous life, V. H. Stone. Have you ever seen your old name show up like a ghost? Robin Graves? For a moment I just stared, the numbers blurring. Then instinct kicked in. I took screenshots, timestamped everything, and forwarded them to the only person in the building with enough power to either fix or bury this, Ethan. We need to talk. Now. Conference room 3. I added the screenshots and hit send. He arrived 3 minutes later, which in Ethan time is the equivalent of a panicked sprint. What is this? He asked, barely sitting before opening the images. Looks like someone resurrected your favorite version of me, I said. The one attached to your accounts. These transfers are from shell entities, he muttered, scrolling. All CEO now. Bahamas, Zurich, Cayman. None of this makes sense. Your credentials were deactivated. When you handed me divorce papers like a performance review, yes, I remember, I snapped. Apparently, whoever did the deactivation missed a spot. His eyes flicked up to mine, and for once, I saw something like anger not directed at me. I will call it, he said. And legal. Do not talk to anyone else about this until I have seen the logs. You think I did this? I asked, just to hear him say it. No, he said instantly, and the speed of that answer mattered more than I wanted it to. Think someone wants us both to burn. The word us lodged somewhere in my chest. I would board it up. I ignored it. Hours later, it confirmed what we already suspected. My old Access ID had been resurrected like a zombie in the system. Someone had used it from outside the building to initiate the transfers. The access trail pointed to an IP address linked to a Boston consultancy, with the oh-so-creative name MT Solutions. Mount. My brain supplied a name before I let it, MT Terra. Have you ever felt your past walk back into the room like it had a key you did not change? I did not say her name aloud. I did not have to. Ethan's face had gone a shade paler, his jaw set in that way. That meant he would already leapt 3 steps ahead. There are 1,000 combinations that could make up MT, he said anyway, like he could logic his way out of the gut punch. Sure, I said. Maybe it is mildly terrifying consulting. Or make trouble, Inc. Very on brand. He ignored the joke. We will lock your accounts, he said. I will talk to internal audit. We can contain this before it leaks. 36 hours later, the story broke. Stone Global, under federal review for international money laundering. Sources cite internal family power struggle. My name was in the third paragraph, nestled between his and Margaret's like some poisonous family crest. Former spouse and current senior creative director, Vivian Hart, allegedly signed off on multiple transfers under her married name. My phone exploded. Unknown numbers, old friends, my mother. I ignored them all. The only call I answered was from a number marked unknown that my gut told me was not unknown at all. "You are trending," a familiar voice purred when I picked up. It was like hearing a song you hated in your childhood that suddenly played in your house without warning. "Who is this?" I asked, though I already knew. "Do not be shy." "Viv," she said. No one else called me that with that particular mix of condescension and intimacy. "You know my voice? You have heard the edited version for years." "Tara," I said, "and the name tasted different now." "Bitter." "You are going to want to watch the news," she continued. "They are painting you as the tragic accessory. Ironic is not it. That is what you were the whole time, just in a prettier frame." "What do you want?" I asked. "Oh, I already took what I wanted," she said casually. "I just figured you deserved a heads up. We are sisters, after all." The line went dead. Sisters. The word echoed like a gunshot in a locked room. Ethan barged into my office 5 minutes later, his phone in hand, face tight. "I just got a call from the feds," he said. "They're coming in. They want to talk to you, to me, to Margaret. And I heard from someone else." "Let me guess," I said. "She sounds like she is always about to laugh at something cruel. She called you," he asked. "She said we are sisters." He stared at me. "You are not related," he said, too fast. "You can't be." She would have told me. "Would she?" I asked. Because the Tara I met at our kitchen island was not exactly a reliable narrator. Have you ever realized you are standing in the middle of a story where everyone else got the script and you are improvising? The investigators arrived the next morning. Suits, badges, tired eyes that had seen this before. They separated us. I was sat in a windowless conference room with 2 agents who introduced themselves as Ramirez and Collins. They recorded everything. "Mass." "Hart," Ramirez said, clicking a pen. "You were formerly married to Mr. Stone. During that time, did you have access to corporate accounts?" "Access?" I said. "I had access to the Wi-Fi and his insomnia, not the accounts." "We have documentation," Collins said, sliding a folder toward me. "Electronic signatures under V. H. Stone, that was your legal name." I looked at the pages. It was my name, my letters, but not my decision. Transfers approved in the middle of nights. I remembered spending alone on our expensive couch watching bad TV while waiting for Ethan to text that he was running late. "Someone copied my credentials," I said, "were never deleted them when I left." "Do you know a Margaret Teresa Solutions?" Ramirez asked. "MT. Solutions. Boston?" "I know a Margaret who solves things," I said. "But she usually signs everything." Stone. "What about a consultant named Tara Ash?" Yes, I cut in. "I know her. She is the one who taught him what loss looks like in theory. I handled the practical side." "You blame her," Collins said. "I blame a system," I said. "She's just one of its sharpest tools." They did not laugh. They rarely do in these situations. They asked about Palm Coast, about the car crash that had not happened yet but was already waiting in the wings, about any unusual behavior in the last few months. I gave them what I could without giving them my dignity. When they released me, the office felt like a ship listing. People avoided my gaze. A few offered tight smiles. The kind you give someone you are not sure is guilty yet, but do not want to offend in case you need a quote for a podcast later. Lena intercepted me at my office door. "They are going to suspend you," she said quietly. "Officially, it is standard procedure. Unofficially, they are terrified." "Of me?" I asked. "That fallout," she replied. "You are a magnet for it right now." "Lucky me," I said. "Always wanted to be magnetic." That afternoon, I emptied my office in 30 silent minutes. The plaques, the pens, the small plant Mia had gotten me with a note that said, "Welcome back to life." I left the plant. It deserved better than another transplant. Ethan confronted me by the elevator. "You are leaving?" he asked. "They suspended me," I said. "That is their word for get out before the building burns down." "Vayer, they can't do that based on suspicion alone," he said. "They can, and they did," I said. "Do not worry. They will circle you soon enough." "They always do. You are the bigger target." "That is exactly why you should not be in the blast radius," he said. "Come stay at my place, just until this clears." I laughed, sharp. "You think I want to be anywhere near you? When the feds start connecting dots, they already think we are Bonnie and Clyde with better skincare." "This is not a joke. Vivian, I am aware. That is why I am leaving." Have you ever walked away from a building, knowing part of you is still tied to its foundations by paperwork and bad decisions? It feels like cheating death and losing a limb at the same time. I left Stone Global that day, not as a disgraced employee, not yet, but as something more complicated. Someone who had just realized her name was now toxic currency in markets she did not choose to trade in. I should have gone straight home. Instead, I drove, aimlessly at first, then purposefully, as if my hands had their own agenda on the steering wheel. The sun was setting, turning the city into a watercolor of oranges and deep blues. Somewhere between downtown and the river, my car's dashboard lit up with a warning: brake system fault. "You have got to be kidding me," I muttered, easing my foot onto the pedal. It went down too easily. The car slowed, but not enough. The light ahead turned yellow, then red. I pressed harder. The pedal sank to the floor like it was made of butter. The car did not respond like it should have. In that moment, metal and momentum and a sickening realization, I realized two things at once. One, my brakes were failing. Two, this was not a coincidence. Have you ever felt death brush your shoulder in something as mundane as a traffic light? Time did that stretchy thing it does in movies. It slowed down, even as everything sped up. Horns blared. Tires screeched. I yanked the wheel, tried to angle toward the shoulder, but the road curved by the river, guardrail looming. I heard another engine behind me, roaring closer, too close, like someone shadowing my every move. Then, out of nowhere, a black SUV cut across from the lane behind, swerving in front of my car just enough to take the impact as I slammed into the guardrail. Metal screamed. Glass exploded. The world spun, then crunched to a violent stop. When the world righted itself, there was smoke, the smell of burnt rubber, and something acrid. My ears rang. My hands shook. I blinked blood out of my left eye and saw through the cracked windshield that the SUV's driver's door was open. Ethan was stumbling toward me, face contorted, blood on his forehead. "Vivian," he shouted, voice muffled through the ringing. "Can you hear me?" "Unfortunately," I croaked, because even half-conscious my reflex was sarcasm. He yanked open my door, cursed at the jammed metal, then braced his shoulder against it and shoved until it gave with a screech. "Your brakes," he said, breathless. "They were cut." "How do you know?" "Because mine almost were," he said. "I had them checked yesterday." "Anonymous tip." "Anonymous," I repeated. "Let me guess. She sounds like a ghost. We will talk about it later," he said. "Right now, We get you out. He unbuckled my seatbelt, half lifted, half dragged me away from the car just as flames licked up from under the hood. The heat seared the back of my legs. Sirens wailed in the distance. My whole body felt like a bruise. You are insane, I said faintly. You could have died. So could you, he snapped. I do not get to lose you like this. Have you ever heard someone say they do not want to lose you in the same week? They almost lost your future with their negligence. Timing is cruel. The paramedics arrived. All efficient chaos, collars, stretchers, questions. They insisted on taking us both to the hospital. In the ambulance, I stared at the metal ceiling while they checked my vitals. Minor concussion, bruised ribs, cuts from glass. I would live. Ethan, strapped to the next gurney over, cracked ribs, stitches needed. He caught my eye. If you are going to haunt me, I said weakly, at least do it in a less cliché way than dying heroically in a car crash. Shut up and let the morphine work, he said, but his lips twitched. In the error between scans and paperwork, the detectives showed up again. This time, their tone was different. Odd. Almost. Someone tampered with your brake lines, Agent Ramirez said. Both cars. Clean job. Professional. But Stone's mechanic caught it, fixed his, and flagged it. Yours was hit later, which means whoever did this knew I would be driving alone, I said, and knew I was worth more dead than alive. We're worth more dead to someone else, he said. We have a suspect. They showed me a fuzzy still from a security camera in the garage near my apartment. A woman in a dark baseball cap, head down, walking away from my car. Even in grainy black and white, I recognized the tilt of her chin. Tara. Of course it was Tara. Have you ever felt relief and terror at the same time? Because at least now your paranoia has a face. We are issuing a warrant, Ramirez said. She is connected to the financial mess. And now this. Can I pick the charges? I asked. Because attempted murder sounds so formal. I would go with obsessive identity theft with homicidal tendencies. Collins did not smile. You should stay somewhere safe, he said. Do you have family, friends? I thought of my mother, sweet and tired, in another state. Of the few friends I had not lost in the fallout. Of the studio. I would barely had time to build. Then I looked at Ethan, who was sitting up now. IV in his arm, hospital gown doing his broad shoulders no justice. She knows everywhere I have ever been, I said. The only place she will hesitate to walk into is a place where you are waiting for her. So you are coming with me, he said, reading my mind like he used to before everything got ugly. I hated that he was right. I also hated how safe the idea sounded in that moment. Have you ever chosen the lesser of two dangers and called it refuge? They discharged us the next day with prescriptions and warnings. Ethan's driver took us straight to his apartment, top floor, security. A doorman who'd shoot someone a disapproving look for breathing wrong. Inside, everything was the same as when I had left months before. Minimal furniture, expensive art, the faint smell of his cologne soaked into the couch. A ghost version of our life together, preserved in amber. You can have the bedroom, he said. I will take the couch. Did not. We already do this arrangement at the retreat, I asked. At least this time you are not drugged, he said. As far as we know, I replied, eyeing the water like it might be laced with grandmotherly ambition. The first night was a study in awkwardness. We moved around each other carefully, like people trying not to bump into their own reflections. At one point, I caught him staring at a photo he had left on a shelf, us at some charity gala, me in a silver dress, him in a black tux, both of us smiling like we believed the script. He turned it face down. Guilty conscience, I asked. Trying to declutter optics. I am trying, he said, not to make you relive a lie every time you walk past a table. Too late, I said. The lie lives in my bones. That night, I could not sleep. I wandered into the living room around 2 a.m., finding him awake, laptop open, spreadsheets and emails spilling across the screen. His eyes were bloodshot. You should be resting, I said. So should you, he answered. Instead, we are both awake and exhausted. Classic us. You are digging, or not you, into every file Tara touched, he said. Every account she accessed. Every fake signature, including yours. And, I asked. Found something charming, your name, he said, on an adoption record I did not know existed. The room tilted. What? Not your current adoption, he said quickly. A previous placement in Boston, under a different name. He turned the laptop to show me. There, in scanned, grainy glory, was a document from decades ago. Child, female, name, Lily Ash. The rest blurred as my vision tunneled. Ash. Ashford, I whispered. Lily Ashford. I had Collins run it through their system, he said. The caseworker's notes mention a foster home. Siblings. A boy and a girl. The boy's name. He paused, like the universe demanded dramatic timing. Ian. Brother, I said. My voice sounded foreign. The one in the coma for years. He is awake now, Ethan said, and he wants to talk to you. Have you ever felt your entire past rearranging itself, like someone bumping a table full of puzzle pieces you thought were already finished? The next day, still bruised and stiff, we met Ian at a small, quiet cafe by the river. He was thinner than in the photos Tara used to show, with faded scars along his jaw and a softness in his eyes that felt like a bruise healing. He stood when I walked in, studying my face with an intensity that should have been uncomfortable but was not. It felt like being searched for. Vivian, he said, his voice caught. Or, you used to be Lily? The name rang faintly in the back of my mind like a distant bell. I do not remember that, I said slowly. I remember being moved. I remember the Hart family. A social worker. Boxes. But before that, it is all noise. Ian nodded. You were 5, he said. I was 8. You barely spoke. You would draw little houses on scrap paper and line up your crayons in strict order of color. You liked blue. If anyone moved your blue, you would cry. A shard of memory slid into place. A crumpled crayon box. Tiny fingers moving colors back into a rainbow. A boy's hand reaching out to fix them when another kid messed them up. We were placed together, he continued, in the Ashford home. It was not good. My father drank. My mother pretended not to see. You clung to me, like I was the only stable piece of furniture in a hurricane. And Tara, I asked. His jaw tightened. She was not there at first. She came later, older than us, quiet, smarter than everyone in the room combined. She watched everything. When the system decided the home was unsuitable, they started processing removals. You were accidentally sent to another state to the Hart family before they finalized the paperwork. A clerical error. You vanished. They lost me, I said, like a file in the wrong drawer. We were supposed to go find you once things stabilized, he said. But there was another crash. The one that put me in a coma. Tara came out fine physically. The papers were a mess. The social worker asked her if she was the missing younger sister. She said yes. They believed her. She became me. She took your name, your story, your access to sympathy. Have you ever wondered why your childhood feels foggy and then realized someone else lived the version of your life that made more narrative sense? She used my file to get in with Ethan's world, I said, piecing it together. She told them she was the girl who'd pulled him out of a wreck. She did pull him out, Ian said. That part was real. But everything after was curated. She liked being the woman a man felt indebted to him, to me, to everyone. So when I showed up in his life, I said I was an inconvenient echo of a person she had already decided to be. You were the real version of the role she was playing, Ian said, and she hates reality when it threatens her script. He glanced at Ethan, who'd been silent, letting us navigate this minefield. She told me, after I woke up, that if you were gone, everything would go back to how it was supposed to be, that she could reclaim the life that was hers. It was never hers, I said, anger cutting through the numbness. It was mine, and even I do not want it. Have you ever felt rage and relief coexist? Because at least now you know why the unease in your gut always said, this does not add up. Tara had used my name, my history, my fake absence to stitch together her own importance, and now she was trying to erase me the only way left, physically. The police have her, Ethan said quietly. They picked her up at a storage unit outside Boston. She still had your old records in a box, the adoption forms, the hospital bracelets, everything she used to build her reality. They found the fake IDs, the offshore accounts. She is not going anywhere. Except prison, Ian added. Finally, the trial was a circus we were barely allowed to watch. Lawyers, exhibits, charges that sounded like they belonged to someone in a movie. Fraud, embezzlement, attempted murder. She pled not guilty to everything, smiled for cameras, acted like the misunderstood victim. When I was called to testify, she watched me walk to the stand with a smirk that said, "You are only here because I let you exist in the narrative." Mess. A heart, the prosecutor said. Do you recognize the defendant? Yes, I said. She was my husband's first love. She is, apparently, my administrative twin, and she tried to kill me. Objection, her lawyer said. Speculation. Withdrawn, I said. Let me rephrase. She cut my brake lines and forged my signature. The killing part is inferred. The judge gave me a warning look. I dialed it back, gave them facts, not commentary. The accident, the forged accounts, the call where she called me sister, the documents Ian had confirmed. Tara stared, unblinking, until I stepped down. For a second, as I walked past her, she leaned forward and hissed, "You are nothing without me." I paused and turned just enough so only she could see my expression. "You have never been without me," I said. "You have been living in my shadow your whole life. Have you ever realized the person trying to erase you is terrified of not existing in relation to you?" The verdict came in 3 days later, guilty on multiple counts. She did not flinch when they read the sentence. 7 years before parole, maybe more. She stared straight ahead, jaw tight, hands cuffed. Them Urks. As they led her away, she glanced back once, eyes burning, and for a split second I saw not the villain but the girl. She must have been abandoned, angry, hungry. I let the sympathy wash over me and then recede. I did not owe my compassion to the person who tried to run me off the road and out of my own name. After court, outside on the courthouse steps, the press swarmed. Microphones. Cameras. Questions shouted over each other. Mess. Hart, did you know about the fraud? How does it feel to find out your identity was stolen? Are you and Mr. Stone reconciling now that you have survived all this together? That last one stung in a different way. Survival has a funny way of making people assume romance is the reward. Ethan stepped up beside me, shoulders squared. "No questions," he said, shielding me from microphones like they were shrapnel. "Not today." In the car, afterward, I stared out at the city, feeling older and sharper than I had any right to feel at my age. They are going to spin this, I said. Tragic couple survives betrayal and danger. Rebuilds empire together. They can spin whatever they want, he said. We know the truth. Do we? I asked. Because here's mine. You broke me long before she tried to kill me. She just made it literal. Silence fell thick in the car. Then he said, very quietly, I know. He pulled over by the river, turned off the engine, and faced me fully. Bruises still yellowed the edges of his jaw from the crash. I can't undo what I did, he said. The years I let you shrink. The way I treated you like stability instead of a person. The fact that I did not see you were drowning because I liked how still the water looked. It was the closest thing to an honest confession I would ever heard from him. I can sell my shares, he continued. I can clear your name. I can stand in front of every camera and say, I failed you. I can do all of that. But I can't make you love me again. I won't even ask you to. Have you ever wanted someone to beg and then felt strangely relieved when they did not? So, what do you want? I asked. To see what you build next, he said. Even if I am nowhere near it. A few weeks later, he made good on that. Ethan Stone resigned from Stone Global, sold off his stake, and disappeared from the company news cycle with a bland statement about new opportunities. The board spun it as a strategic shift. Margaret did interviews in Europe about the next generation of leadership, glossing over the granddaughter-in-law she would nearly destroyed in the process. I moved into a new studio by the river, sunlight on white walls, rough wood floors, no ghosts embedded in marble. I called it Heartline Designs again, this time legally, fully, with every document bearing my name and mine alone. Clients came not because of scandal, though that is what pulled some of them to my door at first, but because my work spoke a language they recognized. Calm, strength, clarity, spaces designed to make people feel like they could breathe again after surviving something that almost broke them. I knew that feeling well. Occasionally, I would see Ethan at a distance, on a sidewalk, in a magazine, once at a charity event where we nodded at each other from across the room. We never played pretend again. That part of us was over. Really over. Maybe that is what closure actually is. Not a dramatic goodbye, not a final fight, but a simple, quiet acknowledgement. We are no longer part of each other's futures, no matter how tangled our pasts are. Have you ever arrived at the end of chaos and realized the scariest thing is not losing everything? It is deciding what you are going to do now that no one else is holding the pen. That is where Act IV ended for me. Not with a kiss, not with an explosion, not with a hand held in a hospital bed, but with a woman standing alone in a studio full of blank plans and knowing, for the first time, that every line she drew from here on out would be for her, and her alone. The funny thing about endings is how quiet they are. No orchestral swell, no thunderous applause, just the sound of your own breath in a space that finally belongs to you. Months had passed since the trial. Tara was behind bars. Stone Global had fractured into polite ruins. Margaret's empire was now run by the same board she would once looked down on, and Ethan. Well, Ethan had vanished from headlines, which meant he was finally learning peace in silence. And me, I was still learning what it meant to exist without crisis as my job title. The studio was thriving. Clients came from places I would only seen in magazines before. London, New York, Singapore. People said my designs carried a kind of emotional architecture structures that held grief and resilience at the same time. Maybe they were right. Maybe every space I built was a way of rebuilding myself. Still, sometimes, in the quiet after midnight, I would catch myself tracing blueprints longer than necessary, fingers following invisible lines as though searching for something I would forgotten to include. A window, a door, a way out that was not escape, but transformation. Have you ever been so free that it scared you? Freedom sounds romantic until you realize it comes without instructions. One rainy Thursday, while sorting through client portfolios, my assistant Mia knocked. "Someone's here for you," she said. "No appointment." "Tell them to email," I said automatically. "He says it is urgent." She hesitated. "He looks different." I did not need her to say the name. I already knew. Ethan stood in the doorway, older, sharper around the eyes, dressed casually in a way that made him look less like a CEO and more like a man learning how to breathe again. "You are a hard woman to find," he said. "That is the point," I replied. "What do you need, closure?" he said simply. The word hung there, fragile but deliberate. I gestured to the chair across from me. 5 minutes. After that, I charged by the hour. He smiled faintly, then sat. "I sold everything," he began. "The shares, the house, the car. Margaret's foundation bought the stone name. I do not own anything anymore, not even the narrative." "Congratulations," I said. "That is progress." "I came to give you something," he said, sliding a small envelope across the table. Inside was a check, the kind of number that could fund a lifetime or rebuild 10 studios. "No," I said, pushing it back. "You do not get to buy redemption. You tried that once with money and once with apologies. Neither stuck." "It is not redemption," he said. "It is restitution for everything you built under my shadow, for the years I took." "You did not take them," I said. "I gave them. That is the worst part." He exhaled. "You always were too honest. And you always mistook honesty for cruelty," I said. "Maybe that is why we failed." He leaned forward slightly, elbows on his knees. "You know, when I woke up in that hospital after the crash, the first thing I thought was that you were dead. And for 3 seconds, I realized I would rather face every lawsuit in the world than live in a universe where you were not. Then you cursed at me, and I knew I would survive." I smiled, in spite of myself. "You are still dramatic." "You made me that way." "No," I said softly. "I just showed you who you already were." Silence again, the kind that says too much. "I am leaving," he said after a while. "New Zealand. Margaret's estate has land there. I am going to start over something small. Build homes, not empires." "You will hate it," I said. "Maybe," he said, "but maybe that is the point." "You came to say goodbye." "No," he said. "I came to say thank you for surviving me." Have you ever forgiven someone without saying the words? Because the forgiveness was not for them, it was for you. I did not tell him to stay. He did not ask. We understood that this was the version of us that worked. Separate, sober, honest. When he left, I did not cry. I just breathed long and deep, like exhaling a decade of noise. Weeks passed. The world turned quietly. My studio won an award. My name appeared on magazine covers next to words like visionary and resilient. I should have felt triumphant. Instead, I felt something stranger, peace laced with melancholy. It is hard to grieve the person you used to be when you are finally proud of who you have become. That night, I walked to the river, the one where everything once ended and began. The city lights shimmered on the water like fragments of all my past selves: wife, designer, survivor, sister, ghost. I stood there for a long time, watching the reflection move. If you were me, I said quietly to no one, would you have stayed? Would you have fought harder? The wind did not answer. But the water did, rippling softly, as if reminding me that movement, any movement, meant life. Have you ever realized that closure is not a door slamming shut, but you walking away and not looking back? That is what I did. I went home, opened a new project folder on my laptop, and titled it Blueprint for Beginning. No clients yet, no investors, just me. The file was empty, a white canvas waiting. And for the first time in my life, the emptiness did not feel lonely. It felt earned, because I had survived the storm, rewritten the story, and learned that love does not have to be the final act to make the play complete. Sometimes, the most cinematic ending is just a woman standing in her own light, smiling because she built it herself,